Hi everyone, welcome back to Foodonomics. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make some freezer meals that can last you from about 1 week to 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how large your family is. This lasts us about 2 to 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a tray of lasagna, pizza. It's a large pizza, bigger than any large pizza you'll make or find at um, pizza stores or Pizza or Pizza Hut or wherever it is that you order from. It's bigger than that. And burritos, there's about 12 or 14 burritos in here, I believe. And a tray of shepherd's pie, 2 Tupperware containers of chicken soup, and this is an island style Caribbean flavored chicken soup, and some baked thighs that I just baked with some seasoning to add into soups or other things in the future. And then there's some calzones and some meatballs and some Italian style sausages made with ground beef for breakfast. I take everything out ahead of time. There's some shredded frozen zucchini, some garlic, some peppers in all colors, red, yellow, and green, frozen peas, frozen kale, mozzarella, about 700 grams of the mozzarella cheese, and cheddar cheese the same size, the frozen dough of pizza dough that I made in a previous video, 5 large onions, ginger, and carrots, and there's 3 club-size packs of ground meat and 3 club-size packs of chicken. This first recipe is for the meatballs and the Italian style hot Italian sausage, and it is half of 1 tray of the minced meat with a dash of cayenne pepper, some paprika, some fennel, some crushed red peppers, crushed dried red peppers or red chilies, garlic powder, breadcrumbs, and I believe I add 1 egg in here that I didn't show, and of course salt and black pepper to taste according to your palate. And I just roll them up into little balls here. These meatballs, I'm going to bake them now and freeze them so that eventually with these we actually made sweet and sour meatballs to eat with rice. And this here, I just roll it up into a ball and I flatten it out. I'm pretty sure I showed you guys something like this in a previous breakfast video where I just use that for like breakfast sandwiches or something like that. And so while that is baking, I am going to prep some of the other things that I need, like the onions. The onions and the carrots, I'm going to dice half of it and slice a few of it. And then I'm going to put the remainder into freezer bags. I did go ahead and basically slice all the onions I bought for this particular day. It's just so much easier. Like I said, the simpler you make the ingredients, the more you make them available and ready to cook, the more likely it is that you will cook at home as often as possible. So even though I have these freezer meals, if one day I come home and I feel like I can actually, throw together something fresh, it's convenient for me to have some of the essential things like diced onions and diced carrots and frozen peppers and things like that available to me in the freezer so that I can just grab it, take the amount that I want, throw it into the recipe and let it cook, and then we have a homemade hot meal, right? So, and the freezer meals are just there so that if on a day that I don't want to cook and I don't have the energy and the time to do it, I can just stick something in the oven. It heats up and tastes almost exactly, well, actually it does. It tastes pretty much like I just made it that same day. And then we have a hot homemade meal where I know everything that goes in it, as opposed to going out and getting takeout, which will have tons of sugar and MSG and things in it that I'm not really sure what it is, and high in sodium and all of that stuff. So I don't know if you noticed, there was a bag in which I put the ends of the onions in. So that's a bag that I keep to keep the ends of the onions and some ends of carrots and other scraps. I freeze them and then I make homemade chicken stock with it for pennies per pound, or even like I'm actually paying absolutely nothing for my chicken stock and my vegetable stock and beef stock, because I just keep the scraps from onions, um, celeries, as long as it's in good condition. You know what I mean? It can't be rotten. It can't be like totally dirty. You have to wash it, and it has to be clean as well. So keeping scraps like that, you can just throw it into a pot, fill it with water, add the bones from either the chicken or beef, or just make the vegetable type, and you have their homemade chicken stock, which cost you nothing because you're just using what you would have otherwise thrown away anyways, right? So this is actually the meat that's going to go into the burritos. This is actually a really delicious one. So I put the little bit of the onions I had saved over there. By the way, those garlics, they turned color when they started to thaw. I kept them frozen, and when I took them out and started to thaw them, they just started to look very mustardy in color. They were not gone bad. There was nothing wrong with them. It was just a different color. I don't know why it is. If you guys know, you can please leave a comment in the comment section for me and tell me why that happens. So I'm just adding some cumin in here, and some cayenne pepper, and some paprika. I do add thyme and oregano in this mix as well. I do like a little more flavor in my burrito meat. You can add some parsley as well. I don't like cilantro. Yes, I'm one of those people with that DNA that cilantro tastes like soap to me, so I don't like it. However, I do replace cilantro with parsley because I absolutely love parsley. So the frozen peppers, I'm not using all of it, but there's quite a few, quite a bit. I use enough to equal to one full bell pepper in this. And then I'm adding some homemade stock in there. I'm only adding the stock to help cook the whole thing. I'm not adding it so that it gets too liquidy, otherwise your burritos are going to be soggy as anything. Okay, so these are the carrots. I'm just going to dice up the carrots very small as well, but if you can see there, I kept the sides of it. They're washed and cleaned. Of course, they're not fresh carrots, so I'm not keeping the skin on the carrots. I'm going to peel the carrots before I put them in my food. But I cut the ends off, the ends that, that are either different in size or a little too small, whatever it is. If I just don't want to use the certain parts of the carrot for whatever reason, I just, as long as it's, not rotten and in good condition and clean, I will throw it into the stock bag with the onions, and then that will go in my stock as well when I make it. Now, I'm going to link for you guys below some stock recipes, because I did make those before and I posted it on this channel before. So if you guys want to know how to make some homemade bone broth or homemade chicken stock or beef stock, there are some videos on the bottom. So I cut the carrots in half, and then I cut them down the middle in half, and then I cut them into 3 pieces and then dice those into little pieces. That's how I get them. Sometimes I just cut the pieces into halves and then dice them, but just so that they're about the size of the tip of your pinky, basically. You don't want them too big. And these carrots will be going into the shepherd's pie mix. So the shepherd's pie is going to have carrots in it. Half of that is all I really need. It's about almost I think 2/3 or half a cup of carrots is what I will be using for the shepherd's pie. So the rest will go in the freezer bag. Again, these are reusable freezer bags that I got on Amazon. They're silicone and they're really good. I've had them for like 2 or 3 years now. They don't hold on to any aroma or odor from the food that you put in there. And these ones I don't believe are dishwasher friendly. I do want to get something that is dishwasher friendly, but they are, easy to clean and easy to dry. So I'm just dicing up the ginger. The ginger will go into the burrito filling. So I slice them into like very thin slices. Of course, I peel my ginger. There's a lot of debate or different opinions about whether or not to, but my understanding is that there is some level of toxicity to the ginger skin. I don't know how true this is. This was what I read. And if there's a chance that it could be toxic in any way, then it's not going in my food or in my kids' food or, you know, in the food of my family members. No, so I peel it. But what you do with your food is up to you, really. I don't know the exact facts, but what I have read is that there is some level of toxicity to ginger skin. I don't even know if that's true because you really don't know with the things you read on the internet these days. Anyhow, so I added a cup of canned beans. I believe those are pinto beans. I would have normally done like a kidney bean in there, but I don't think I had any kidney beans, so I added that, and some day-old brown rice. Now, the best type of rice to put in here is brown rice, and make sure it's not fresh cooked. It has to be a day old so that it's a little bit tougher. That right there is taco seasoning. You can find that in just about any grocery store, and if you can't find it, you can make it on your own. I will leave a recipe for that at some point. And then on top of that, I added some diced tomatoes, a whole can, I believe, of about a full cup of diced tomatoes. The tomatoes are to give it the flavor, but I let the tomatoes completely cook down in there and for any liquid to evaporate. Otherwise, you will have, again, really soggy burritos. Now, this is what I am making for, I believe this is for the pasta sauce. Honestly, I'm browning. This could be either the pasta sauce or the shepherd's pie. So it looks like it's the shepherd's pie. So I do go ahead and add some oregano and thyme and anything that I find, like basil, dried basil in here. There's half of an onion, no, 3/4 of a white onion diced in there, or like 3/4 cup. There's a little bit of paprika in there just because I just love spicy flavors. 2 garlics, minced, 2 garlic cloves, not whole garlics, minced in there. And I am adding some chicken stock and a cup of the carrots. Sorry, it's 3/4 cup of carrots. This is some tomato pureed sauce, not puree, but tomato sauce, like homemade tomato sauce that's really, really like condensed. And I showed you guys this earlier. This is the potatoes that I was boiling. I boil the potatoes right down till they're really, really soft. Now in this, I'm adding some of the shredded zucchini. Again, I like to throw in whatever vegetables I have on hand into the dishes that are basically one dish dinners. For instance, the vegetables, the meats, the carbs, all of it is in one dish. So I like to add as much vegetables as possible. And so then, just because I had the frozen zucchini, I went ahead and added it in here. Now that's the peas. The peas and the carrots are basically what gives it everything for a shepherd's pie. So I'm just going to make like a really chunky, rustic mashed potato. And you don't have to have it really cooked and mushy. To be honest, I tend to go that way because I forget that the potatoes are boiling while I'm making everything else. But you don't need to have it completely like mushy texture at this point, just because when you take it back out of that freezer and stick it in the oven on the day that you're going to eat this dinner, it is going to cook again in the oven. So butter, some chives, and some greens. I put dill in my mashed potatoes, so I'm adding that as well. I'm going to add some cream and liquid in there to soften it up just a little bit. And I just mash it to the best of my abilities with some salt and pepper in the end there. And then that's it really for the mashed potatoes. There's nothing fancy needs to happen because all it is the filling for your shepherd's pie, or one layer for your shepherd's pie. I add cream, but you guys can add milk, or if you don't do dairy at all, you can add like other types of butters and other types of milks like oat milk or almond milk. I cannot tell you how that tastes because I have never done it before, but it's really up to you. So there I am shredding half of, at this point I think like a quarter of the cheddar cheese. So with the chicken thighs, I really just wanted to have something available in case I wanted to make some sort of chicken dish at some point. I didn't even take the skin off of it, just salt and pepper on both sides, and I laid it out on a tray and I stuck it in the oven to completely bake through. All of the bones of this chicken thigh I am going to be removing at some point and throwing it into the stock bag because I will be using that for stock bag. That right there is frozen tacos. Are those even called tortillas? Yes, that's what you call them. Sorry, not tacos. Tacos have filling in it. So those are homemade tortillas that I made in a previous video. Not in that exact video, but like I've shown how to make it. So I will leave that link below as well. So my burrito filling was ready. I just, my tabletop is always clean when I start doing this work, so I just went ahead and removed the other things and cleaned it again a little bit. Dried it. Make sure you dry it before you put it in there. There is some enchilada sauce in the pan there. I filled it up. I filled up the taco, the burrito with the filling. And we add yogurt. We don't do sour cream. We add yogurt. Just because in my family, people don't tend to like sour cream. I love it, but I kind of have to also make sure that if I'm going to fill it ahead of time, that everyone else likes it as well. I don't add way too much of the enchilada sauce on the top of it just because I just kind of brush it on top, because I don't want to take it out of the thing, and as it thaws, it's already going to get a little soggy before we put it on a grill or anything. I don't want it to be extra soggy and make it impossible to do anything with. Now, for the shepherd's pie, I have to be honest, the only reason I'm oiling this pan is because I did not have any parchment paper left, or I forgot that I could use parchment paper. One or the other has happened on this day. And I decided, oh yeah, because I didn't want anything layering on the bottom. I just wanted to have the meat directly go on. So I just take the entire filling. I made this a little bit too wet, I found, because there was a lot of liquid left on the bottom, but that's okay, because when you put it back in the oven after you thaw it for the day that you're going to eat it, remember it's going to recook and things are going to evaporate all over again. So there we go. I put the meat on the bottom. I have heard there are people who like to put the potatoes on the bottom, but I imagine that would probably burn the potatoes, so I'm not sure how that would work. I've never had shepherd's pie with the potato on the bottom. I may have had it with 2 layers of the potato, like one on the bottom, one on the top. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure, as far as I could remember, all shepherd's pie have always been the mashed potatoes on top. So as you can see, again, my really rustic, chunky mashed potato goes on top of this. Guys, you can also do this shepherd's pie as a vegetarian meal as well. You can just go heavier on the peas and the carrots, and as well add like kidney beans or some type of beans in there, some type of dried beans in there, and use that as the base instead of the meat. There's so many options. Like, if you guys do make something vegetarian and it turns out really good with the same seasonings and stuff, do let me know. Leave a comment below, let me know. So anyhow, to the best of my abilities, I go ahead and get all of those potato bits on there, and then I add the cheddar cheese on top. Now, when you cover this, I would suggest put a wax paper on top so that the cheese and the potatoes don't end up sticking to it the day you take it out to put in the oven. So I think after I did this cheese, I realized that I hadn't shredded enough or something. I must have gone ahead and added more, I'm not sure. Something didn't have enough cheese that day for sure. There we go. Actually, it looks like it's enough. It's quite a bit. So the reason I do this is I find that it really, really helps with having good food at home that's homemade. Yeah, I had to add some of the mozzarella. But also, it really helps to know what's in your food, and it keeps you from spending so much money on takeout and Uber Eats and DoorDash and all those other things out there that's extremely convenient and really tempting. But if you really look at it, I remember one time I had an incredibly busy month with work, and some of you might know I'm also an author, so I write when I'm not doing my day job. And as a parent, it's a really busy household. So during that one month, I remember I had gone over maybe $300 in Uber Eats, and that was the month that I realized, like, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And it was just like that whole thing. If I had just gone ahead and done the groceries instead, and made everything from home, it would have been several weeks of food, or at least a week of food, as opposed to, like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that it's such a huge waste of money when you're trying to run a healthy lifestyle for food that doesn't really benefit you in any way, most of the times anyways. I mean, there are some places like Freshie or whatnot. I don't actually order from there ever, but like, I would rather have a hearty, hot, homemade meal than have, I don't know, a smoothie from Freshies, or a vegetable salad from a takeout place that's gonna cost me 2 or 3 times what a fresh, homemade, hearty meal would cost. It just doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't really help. I don't think so anyway. So here's the pasta sauce that I'm making for not the pasta sauce, what is it? The lasagna filling? I'm not an expert at making pasta or lasagna. I can't tell, like, I won't, if you know how to make it better than I do, honestly, share your recipe with me. But this is just how I make it on the days that I want to do a full freezer meal set. So I brown the meat, I dip out some of that oil. So half of that chicken I actually left behind, the ones that are not being baked. I'm frying it in the Instant Pot so that I can add it back into the Instant Pot for my chicken soup, the Caribbean flavored chicken soup. It's just chicken thighs. So going back to the pasta sauce, or the lasagna sauce filling layer, I don't claim to be an expert in any way, but I do add a lot of healthy things into my sauces and my pasta and everything. So this is how I make it. This is how everybody likes it in my house. The one thing I didn't do in this particular video is I didn't make the extra layer of ricotta cheese filling. We just went without that, and nobody noticed, but I noticed because I really like that layer. So I add diced tomatoes and seasonings into my pasta sauce always. And I'm pretty sure in this I also added the zucchini, frozen zucchini as well. So as I was saying before regarding the prices I spent, oh, maybe not. Maybe it's just frozen kale that I added. Well, yeah, so like I said, like, this is not something you have to do, right? Adding the frozen kale. But this extra addition of kale turned out to be, one of the healthier things, the healthier parts of this lasagna. So as I was saying, during the pandemic, like right at the beginning, when we couldn't go to grocery shopping as often as possible and all that, I remember having spent a lot of money on takeout or Uber Eats at the time, or DoorDash. And I remember that, like, during the pandemic, the first thing that I noticed was at the, like, 1.5 years into the whole thing, was that I had gained almost 25 pounds. And I quite literally just stopped eating out, takeout, and Uber Eats and DoorDash. And you know what happens with weight gain. Usually you get lethargic, and you get, like, you don't feel the same physically. It's a little bit draining. I don't know if that is how it is for everybody else. For me, I felt tired all the time. I was not a happy camper. I just felt uncomfortable. I couldn't, do the things that I normally did with like you know, whether it's exercise or anything else that I enjoy. I actually enjoy exercising, so for me to be doing all that, I just couldn't do it the way that I would normally. And the first thing I did was cut off all of the ordering in. So this right here, I have so I took the chicken out. I added the diced onions, 1 cup, and diced peppers, 1 cup. There's the remainder of the carrots, 1 cup, and there I have some frozen pumpkin, and it's about 1 cup of frozen pumpkin. That pumpkin is going to become the base of this soup. There I go again, adding the kale. Now the kale does change the flavor a little bit, and a little bit of that zucchini as well. They change the flavor a little bit, but if you don't add too much stock or too much water in this soup, it's not going to be all that bad, because your seasonings will still be flavorful, and if you're using a good stock, then the stock will add the flavor, and that pumpkin is actually going to melt down and turn into a base. And same with the carrots, if you cook it long enough, it's going to get soft enough that it will be like an added base to the soup, and it will make it a really thick, hearty soup. I would say season this however you want to season it. I add bay leaves. I do add like a tiny pinch of cayenne in here for a kick. And then I'm bringing back that fried chicken. It's not thoroughly browned on either side. The reason being is because I took the skin off before I added it back, because there are people in my household, when they see the skin, they get really disgusted by it. So here we are again. I'm just adding the homemade chicken broth, and there is definitely a lot of fat in the stock and in the pot at the moment, but once you finish cooking, you can, you know, use a spoon and take the fat out. So now in a pot, I am using the remainder of the diced onions, and I believe some minced garlic, and I'm going to saute those for a little bit. And so as I was saying previously, so when I did stop eating out and I started making everything from home, literally within about 3 months, without even me starting to exercise or anything on a different level, like I was not exercising at all during the pandemic. So without me doing any of that, I ended up losing all of those 25 pounds, almost like maybe 3 months top. And it was entirely the way I was eating. Now, I was not dieting. I was not eating less than I was eating. I simply just cut out fast food and takeout and Uber Eats and everything that involves food that was not made at home completely out. So it looks like I just made some kind of pasta sauce in that dish. I have to be honest with you, because I don't always do the voiceovers right away, I have no idea what I just started making there. So here I'm making the sweet and sour meatballs. I guess the first one that I made in this video was actually for breakfasts. This right here, I'm using the remainder, the last of the 3 trays of minced meat. I'm using the remainder of the last half of it to make these meatballs, which we later used for sweet and sour meatballs. When I took them out, I just added the sweet and sour glaze to it, and then we rolled it on the stove and we ate it with rice and vegetables. You can also add it to some type of pasta if that's how you prefer it. So you basically add 1 egg, I guess 2 eggs because it's a lot more meat, a cup of breadcrumbs, and the seasonings of your choice. Of course, salt and pepper is one of those. I added ginger in here. I added some garlic, fresh garlic, and onion powder in here. I don't like to have crunchy pieces of onion in my meatballs, so onion powder. And then just mix it all up, and then you scoop it out into the size of the meatballs that you want, and you just put it onto a tray. Just line up as many. Of course, when you do scoop them out with the ice cream scooper, you kind of have to roll it back up with your hand again if you're like me and want it to be, you know, presentable. I don't like my meatballs to look like little sloppy pieces of unusual shapes. So I roll them out again with my hands, and then I'm sticking them in the oven. And here's the meat sauce for the lasagna. And just layering the whole thing on the bottom. Generally, I would make it a little more watery, just so that the sorry, not the whole thing, half of it on the bottom, and then the rest in the middle layer. So generally, I would make it a little more liquidy with a little more tomato sauce in there. I don't know why I didn't this time. I made it a little thicker. I use the no boil noodles. They are the easiest way to make lasagna if you're going to freeze it, because when you stick it in the oven, it just cooks right up, and there's like no issue whatsoever. So if you're going to freeze anything, it's better for you to use this no boil lasagna noodles, because it'll be a lot easier to just stick it in the oven and it'll cook with the food, versus having to boil something or boil something, or you know, half boil something and then stick it on top, and then it'll dry up, and I don't even know what will happen with that, but it's just way too much work on a freezer meal prepping day. So I throw some of the no boil noodles on top, and then I throw the mozzarella cheese on top. And this is the part where I would normally put the ricotta cheese filling. I would suggest you do that. We didn't really notice the difference at all when we made this lasagna, because it was nice and, like, you know, meaty and cheesy and lasagna-y. So I don't know any other word for it. So basically just 2 layers of everything is all I did. But if you really will miss that flavor, either do what you will do normally. Bechamel is a really good sauce as well. I found in my previous attempts at making lasagna that it tastes incredible. So if I was going to make this again, I probably would either make the bechamel sauce, or in a jiff it would do to have some ricotta cheese filling. So I guess I ran out of cheese in this one too. It was a whole block of mozzarella cheese. But so now we're going, so the sauce that I just said earlier that I have no idea what it was, that was actually pizza sauce. So I actually add diced tomatoes and tomato sauce together, and I let them reduce until it's thick enough to use as pizza sauce, and sometimes I add some of my own flavorings in it. So make sure to, flour the bottom of the tray. Generally, when I make pizza, I like to roll in some mozzarella cheese into the side of the thing, and those overlaying parts. But on this day, I decided to cut it all off and add it back to the main dough, so that I can use the remainder of the dough to make the calzones. So basically, the calzones and this pizza, I'm making it the exact same way, just some, pizza sauce. There it is, the reduced pizza sauce that I made. I love the pizza sauce like this because there's chunky pieces of tomato in it from the diced tomatoes. Now, I know that most or a lot of people don't like to bite into a tomato that's chunky. So if that's your thing, you can make this the same way and then go ahead and blend it with an immersion blender, and it will come out smooth. The sauce itself, I sauteed the remainder of, I guess it was a half an onion. I threw some basil in it, some other seasonings if you like, and then I threw in the diced tomatoes and the tomato sauce, and then just let it cook down. And then you can put an immersion blender into all of that and just really, really, tone it down. So I guess I didn't really run out of cheese for the lasagna. I just used a little bit less so that I can make sure that I had enough for the pizza. So that's what happened. So the pizza, we usually end up eating it on the day of when I make the freezer meals, just because, I mean, pizza's always better fresh. But when you make a pizza like this, if you're gonna freeze it, you can freeze it in this stage, just like that. Wrap it up in parchment paper and then cling wrap and foil, or you could bake it, let it cool, and then wrap it up and put it in the freezer. Either way works. I prefer the frozen method where you have to take it and bake it again, as opposed to pre-baking, because that can, when you thaw it, the pre-baking can make it a little bit soggy and dull. I don't really know how it would work because I haven't done that where I had to put it back in the oven or anything. So the sausages I made at the beginning of the video, I've crumpled it up. It's actually ground beef flavored, like Italian sausage flavored ground beef for the pizza. Again, this is what happens when you don't do the voiceover for over a month and then you forget what's actually happening. So to be completely honest, I don't actually like doing the voiceover part of the recording. Obviously the cooking is just, that's the natural thing. That's the thing that I have to do anyway. But the video, I get help to make the videos. However, I don't like the editing part as much. It's not my favorite part of posting these videos, but I do them because I feel, you know, it's useful, right? I hope it's useful for somebody, because these are things that have made my life a million times easier. So it's the same toppings that are going into the calzones. I don't make them out, like I don't roll them out to be like a perfect shape or anything, but they're really thick and hearty. Just some tomato sauce and cheese, the peppers, and then some of the bits of the meatballs. And I roll the ends over like that to make it almost look like a patty, like a Jamaican patty almost, how it has that beveled edge. Then you just poke a few holes on the top to let some air go through with the fork. And you add some egg so that it comes out nice and glossy when it's done. So now the soup is done. And at this point, you can see that the chicken is all falling apart. Like when you press the chicken, the whole thing comes off the bone. That's what you want. Now, you can use the bones from this chicken as well, or the chicken that's in here, to make stock. At that point there, I'm turning off the thing, the pressure cooking part of it, and I just added a slurry. And this is everything, you guys. There's the pizza. So the cornstarch slurry is going to thicken up the soup. That's what I was going to say. So there's the pizza, there's the burrito wraps. I just rolled them up and put them in the tray like that. I'm going to wrap all of these. That's the shepherd's pie right there. The cheese already started to melt because of how hot the food was. And then we have here the soup on the bottom right corner. Bottom left corner. And then the baked chicken, which is just salt and pepper and chicken. That chicken is going to go into anything chicken that we want, whether it be chicken salad sandwiches, chicken salads, anything that we want to add chicken in. And then there's the meatballs on the side there that's going to be turned into breakfast and whatnot. And there's the calzones, and the other meatballs were still probably in the oven, I guess, because they're not out here. Those I ended up using for sweet and sour meatballs. So this is everything I made that day, you guys. I hope you guys get the chance to try this. And if you guys like it, please do comment below, click like, and thank you for watching.